There's one constant that exists with my approaching Mortemia and considering his numerous publications, and that's what I call the open door phenomenon, which can operate by numerous appearances, whatever is mandated or desired by the particular track entry that you unite together in a collaborative fashion or consulting. And that is true to the credit of either the COVID Aftermath sessions or its earlier predecessor, the Pandemonium sessions. Over both albums, this remains true that we have numerous opportunities for deepening education and introduction, perhaps, into the world of music. In a shared experience of reverence, I do believe music is best enjoyed in a corporate sense. I think it brings a lot of value to the experience, and to take this path with you over numerous credits here, whoever is recognized, is a real honor. And Mortemia, at this point, I've engaged with his work, Morten Wieland's project to be specific, I think a little over 2 years now. It's been a long ride, and we are now at the 22nd piece we've humored together. But it's been an honor. As I've said, the opportunity to engage with Mortemia is one I would not miss, considering the possibilities. As somebody who is self-diving his way into the European metal world, the whole aspect to Mortemia's project, if you're not familiar, I'm setting some grounding for you so that you're on even footing with any of us who are experienced to Morten Wieland's very much visionary craft. He really is a big name, I think, of reverence within the symphonic and gothic metal spheres of Norwegian origin. As I've been saying, though, with Mortemia, I've tagged the phrase Mortemia model because I consider access for networking paths that we together discover names that have not yet crossed our radar, but are boasting in talent and deserve our attention. And with Mortemia, that's the balance you get. It's a collaborative project in that Morten Wieland very much establishes the instrumental foundation while bringing on a collaborative guest, typically of European metal focus, and they're usually a leading female artist. With some exception, I'm thinking of the Endless Shore with bringing on Nils Koberlund from Sirenia, Morten Wieland's other group. Generally, the collaborative guest will be in the vocal role, with, again, some deviations from the European concentration from time to time. But this has been such a nice welcome mat for me to engage with. I've heard some names that I already knew about going in seldomly compared to the greater pool of new experiences. And today we have one with FOVAMAI, which is a particularly interesting entry in that it's sort of a pool of possibilities for introduction. I'll give you a main one, besides a number of them we'll highlight, I'm sure, in discussion, but I have yet to cross paths at all with the Greek music world. Save for maybe a couple musicians that were birthed out of Greece, I have not yet jumped into their music industry. This is a new path for me. And FOVAMAI is a rather youthful piece in historical memory. That's not necessarily the commonality that exists with many of the covers that we humor together, as most of them are birthed, I would say, out of 60s, 70s, or 80s origin. 90s. In fact, a year shy of when I was born into this world, 97. This is a 96 debut. I feel like this cover is much closer to me. Sort of in my generation in a way, or near enough, though I come in with youthful eyes to it. I have humored the number in advance because this is a cover, and as I've said before, if I don't know the piece and experience, I will humor it behind the scenes, for the most part, maybe with some exceptions from time to time, to get a better perspective on the number, to evaluate it from a comparison of translation. Not to rank it, but to understand, as I always say, just to be clear about this, how one artist translates the voice of another artist's material into a new form. And in this case, we're taking as I understand, 96 debuted, and this is going off of what Mple concentrates in, the group behind this. I think it's pronounced Mple. I might have that wrong. I'm learning here. A Greek pop rock band. And already we've seen that path paved by Mortemia from some advanced pieces. In fact, on this record, I'm thinking of the Samurai cover, or as well the first debut with the Madonna cover for Frozen. We have seen pop numbers transformed into a symphonic metal sense. I love when that happens. And in this case, we're going to see FOVAMAI get that treatment. And it's a beautiful number, its original condition, a much softer piece, but it has a deliberate and very evident rock spine. It's a really gentle number, though. And I found its welcome daintiness or fragility quite alluring. It's a charming number that I'm curious to see how Morten Wieland decided to translate this, alongside MAXI NIL, who I've heard the name before, and I could not tell you how Jaded Stars crossed my radar, but I know the name, and I know they're popular in a metal respect of, speaking of their concentration of genre, heavy and power metal. I'm curious to see what tone this takes, because covers offer quite a versatility, and the symphonic metal sphere allows for a great variance, and we're going to consider the exact performance together, and perhaps in the process gain an introduction to MAXI NIL. And as per usual, with Mortemia, following again the Mortemia model. I will take that name into consideration for future endeavors, perhaps. So don't be surprised if at some point, whenever that is, I'm catching up with a number of names, but maybe Jaded Star will grace this platform at some point. I'm sure. That's the commonality with everybody Mortemia brings on. I love an opportunity for learning. I know some of you would probably love for me to be able to highlight Jaded Star as a name. I mean, I'm into heavy and power metal, so I'm sure that'll appeal automatically. But I'm engaged already. Again, I walk in with a Mortemia familiarity and having just humored FOVAMAI and considering its beauty as a piece, I'm very curious to see the transformation on display here, but I have total faith in the cover respect. Mortemia has boasted such strength with either project where the cover opportunity has been welcomed. One for the predecessor album, and now our 4th entry here. 3 of the cover numbers on this record featuring a pop bend. So we can walk in on faith, I think, that FOVAMAI will impress. I believe the key is maintained. And its elegance is not stripped at all. There's still that defined rock core, heightened. More forceful, obviously. Background choir push too. I love the depth in her accent. It's a very rich vocal performance. I can see the appeal. Really takes you in with each word, that clear diction. I love the repetition too. This is a very strong ballad entry. So far, I think one of my favorites on the record. I think the pace of a number helps to... How am I looking to phrase this? I'm considering the vocal performance and its marriage to tone. It adds this personality that just touches you, I think. And it's not just the emotions on the key that are doing that. Though it's worth it to note, of course. Oh. I'm looking forward to our Jaded Star journeys whenever that is. Just based on that transition alone. And the vocals in this one just really catch my ear. I love that rough and toned. And there's something about how her voice falls into that EF. Oh man. With that rough edge too, it's just gorgeous. Oh, I love how that's cut off too. And a perfect choice to end on hums. It's such a good fitting closure element. And it sort of mimics a bit of a choir presentation that fits automatically into symphonic metal, but I find that number so charming. I'm trying to think of let's see, we're on number 9 so far out of the record. How many ballad pieces have we had? Because a couple of the past numbers have definitely heightened the aggression level back to Pandemic Pandemonium Sessions territory, as I've noted. Tracks 1, 2, 3, and 5. I think they're the most evident going down that path. This is one of my favorites in the group. Well, I hate to rank things. I don't want to risk overshadowing anybody else. And I've credited this album generally as being something special so far and how we've seen it evolve. But I really like the voice of FOVAMAI. By the way, a very personal number. I did have a rough translation pulled up. Well, the visualizer plus the vocal performance just mesmerized me that I got distracted from trying to read along with it in narrative. Of course, you saw that display upon watching if you chose to read along for it yourself, but I did recognize immediately with FOVAMAI translating as well to I'm Afraid. It's a very personal, touching number, of which Jaded Star, I can see the connection beyond MAXI NIL as well being from Greece. Totally fits why I chose her, but as well I did note, at least from one of the entries I'm reading off of Metal Archives, that Jaded Star operates with a concentration on inner freedom and human relations, or fears. So it feels like there's a desired connection that MAXI NIL was an inevitable choice for, and I'm glad Mortemia picked her for this score. It seems that every piece he knows exactly who to pick, because they're all like perfectly fitting puzzle pieces into the creation he's already opened a door for, considering, again, the instrumental foundation. But all of these presences just come onto these songs and let them just explode in beauty beyond what Mortemia has already presented. Maxi's, if I'm pronouncing her name right, and I apologize if I'm not, feel free to clarify if you wish to. If you know, maybe you're a Jaded Star fan. Maybe that's what brought you into this. I'm glad that he picked her, because she is definitely one of the ballad standouts on this album. The richness of her vocals at a much lower threshold, especially when it concentrates on the EF, as I noted, and that rougher edge that comes through, but the impassioned delivery and the clear emotions in her voice just really get me. The holds, the breaths in her performance, but just the smoothness of the vocals, plus that transition, I forget where exactly it was. I think in preparation of a second chorus, it's these small bits that create such a desirable presentation holistically with this entire song. And it's a perfect retelling, I think, of FOVAMAI, as it very much is adapted clearly into a symphonic metal language, though it keeps the ballad core alive, and it still maintains that sense of a rock spine. It's deservedly much softer into a power ballad extreme is how I think that would be best to describe this, but it doesn't shed the key choice, which I love that. I mean, it could have switched, but I don't think it would have sounded quite as tempting or tragic as this one sounds. Again, to preserve that element in its original form here, and it fits perfectly in adaptation to a symphonic metal language. I can't get over, my statement that this is one of my favorite ballad pieces on the album so far. It really is. It just, I'm normally a much more, first and foremost, heavy metal guy. That's sort of the extreme I prefer. More rough songs versus softer ones. Well, again, I keep an open door to anything. It's just the rougher ones I tend to jump to first. But in our time together, we have humored numerous ballad pieces that I found to be substantial competitors right alongside some of my particular heavier favorites. And I think FOVAMAI is going to reach that height over inevitably many subsequent replays. That is its future for me. In its original form, yes, I love what Mple originally created. I think that was a beautiful piece, again, in its own softer appearance, versus this one, which has a much more enhanced bass side. And its depth does come across a bit rougher and enriched, to, again, a symphonic metal angle. But I just love the presentation on this one. And pairing it with Maxi, she's a perfect choice for this number. Just the way her voice floods each note, but just carries you. And how her voice transforms itself from the softer introduction on to how it morphs with that transition. I can't get over that one element alone. It's just such a beautiful performance and display of talent and beauty that it's really sticking with me. I like it. 9 pieces so far. I have not been disappointed. Again, on the COVID aftermath sessions respect, though our journey of Mortemia, much broader. What do you think if that was the first footing for you? And again, I'll tell you that the COVID aftermath sessions is worth your time to consider generally, because it does have a versatile voice, as you'll see by predecessor numbers. It's a good mix, though the Pandemic Pandemonium sessions is explicitly rougher. I love that about that record too, but this one has a much more hopeful side, again, just suggested alone by the title, but by the numbers that we've entertained together in the grand scheme of things. This softer side is really showing a unique dimension of range with Morten Veland's abilities and the artists he brings on. And speaking of Jaded Star as well, I mean, again, I'm just operating by name here and by genre attribution. That's going to be a really interesting adventure, because Maxi's voice fits very well here for a ballad structure, but if Jaded Star concentrates on heavy and power metal, that's going to be a very different sound. I can already sense maybe some undertones that are placed here within the song and how her voice is just naturally articulated. Again, those slight rougher shades that come through, namely on the lower notes. I could see how that has a place of Jaded Star, but my journey at present is uninformed. That has to evolve later. I'm very excited to do so whenever that day is. But that was our fanfare experience for later adventures to humor together in a collaborative route. I'm glad it did that for the treatment of Maxi, as well as the continued spotlight on Mortemia. He has not disappointed me in any way with this work. I'd love to hear if that's the same sentiment for you down below. Or, again, music is very much an independent journey. How do you feel about FOVAMAI in its retold condition? And how do you approach Mortemia? New or familiarized lens? I'd love to hear about it. I think that is one of the strongest entries on the record so far, and we've had a good number of considerations to choose from that respect. And again, I don't like to rank things, but there's been plenty of standout ballad numbers that Mortemia has offered, and this is, I think, going to become easily one of my favorites. And that is to the credit of both Morten Veland on his instrumental prowess, or Maxi's vocals, and the beauty of FOVAMAI's original number adapted into a symphonic metal style. It's very well suited for that. And Mortemia did a great job in adapting it, while maintaining its explicit essence, and Maxi preserving that as well in her vocal capability. It's a reaching number. That tantalizing nature to it in its original form remains existent here, evidently. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.